Alrighty, here we go. Brand new Flyers Daily for the 16th of April, 2025. Flyers Daily presented by Ticketmaster. Make more memories live. I made it. I got to the game. And it was damn good to be there. It was emotional. When you don't see the people that you work with very closely, that you're used to seeing every hockey season repeatedly for a long period of time, and then you get back and dealing with what I've been dealing with to get there and see everybody was insanely therapeutic for me. And I did not feel good yesterday, but I said, I got to suck it up and I got to get there. I made it through 2 periods and about half of the third period. Then I hit the proverbial wall and had to get out before Phillies traffic and Flyers traffic to get home and do the podcast and start to get some rest. But it was great to be there and see a lot of people. It really, really helped me a lot. So for the people that I did see at the game, it was great to see you. It's great to see the game back on the ice. God damn, I love this game. And being in the building, the ebbs and flows of a crowd, and seeing the game live in person, and not being able to see it for 4+ months to get back in there was tremendous. Just a surreal experience. It was probably the longest I had gone without being in a hockey rink, probably since COVID, since I was 4 years old, between when I was in a rink, whether it be an NHL rink or a club rink growing up playing or whatever. Not being in a hockey rink that long, it's my sanctuary. It's a place I love to be. And some people say, why was it so important for you to go? I love what I do for a living. I am utterly blessed to do what I do for a living. I love this game. I love the community and everything about it. And it's a big reason why, and helping me push through this. So it's given me everything, and I love what I do for a living. So it was important for me to be there for my own mental state. And I'm glad that I went. Very glad. Didn't love the outcome. I don't like a 3-0 loss against Columbus, who had everything to play for and are really pushing this thing to the limit. If they can get a regulation win in their last game and Montreal falters against Carolina, they'll get into the playoffs. Columbus will, with their leading scorer being a blue liner, a D-man, which is rare. But they've managed and they've overcome their adversity. There's no doubt about it. With the loss of Johnny Gaudreau heading into the season, trying to pick up those pieces after a tragedy, not easy to do. So I give them all the credit in the world. They played a heck of a game. They got a great performance out of Jet Greaves in goal, who's come on to be their savior here in net down the stretch. He gets the shutout against the Flyers. Jet Greaves listed at 6 foot. He ain't 6 foot. I got news for you. Smaller than 6 foot. Played big though, and played a very good game. Made some really good saves. I thought there was a very emblematic save of the state of mind Jet Greaves is in as the goaltender for Columbus right now. In the second period, I was standing in the corner of the Zamboni entrance watching it right against the glass, and Travis Konechny comes down the right side, and he's got a D-man closing in on him, so he knows he can't get all the way to the net to try and deke out Jet Greaves. So he just loads up a bomb, tries to go short side high glove on Jet Greaves, and Jet Greaves just snatches it. Such a little body movement, and just snatched it with such confidence. It's like, this goalie is in the zone, and he was. Flyers threw a lot at Jet Greaves in the game. He makes 29 saves for the shutout. Flyers with 29 shots, and Columbus with 34 shots in the game. First goal that came in the second period, an absolute bomb by Dante Fabro. Huge layered screen in front of Sam Ersson to the middle of the ice. Fabro goes short side. Ersson's shading short side too, but just a perfect shot off the post. Both posts, it sounded like they were posting a crossbar. And he gets the opening goal. Turns out to be the game winner. Werenski and Monahan with the assist. Columbus goes up 1-0 in the second period. Then at 17:01, they're on the power play just 7 seconds in. Let's talk about the penalty first. This is one of those things that Emil Andre is going to have to, adjust to in the NHL. It was just such a blatantly clear interference as he gets caught a little bit flat-footed on a broken play just inside the Columbus blue line. He decides to ride Zach Aston Reese out hard into the boards. And that's he's got help coming too to support the play and possibly thwart an odd man rush. But he just takes such an obvious penalty there. And obviously Columbus scores 7 seconds into it. In that situation, you just like to see Emil impede his path a little bit. Don't interfere with him, but impede his path a little bit and rely on, your back checker to help you out in that spot. Taking the penalty there, it's just something you don't want to do in today's NHL with power plays, a lot of power plays, not the Flyers included, being so powerful. And that gets Columbus the second goal. Kent Johnson ends up with it. A little 3-on-1 play down low after kind of a broken face-off that Noah Cates ends up on his knees on. And, Monahan makes a great play. Werenski ends up with an assist as well. Monahan's got two options. He can go right to the left side of the net, down to Boone Jenner, or he can go across to Kent Johnson, who takes the one-time shot, hits off the stick of Nick Seeler, and ends up trickling through Sam Ersson. Nothing you can do. That's the peril of blocking shots. Sometimes you block them, you get a piece of it, changes its trajectory, and it turns it into a goal. Now, I don't know if Ersson would have made the save had the shot been clean off Kent Johnson's stick. Not sure. Can't say for sure. But when it gets tipped, he's powerless at that point. 2-0 Columbus after 2 periods. And then in the third period, Adam Fantilli caps off the scoring with his 30th of the season. Kirill Marchenko, real nice play, driving the middle, ends up off Fantilli's skate and into net. And it's 3-0 Columbus, and Jack Reeves did the rest. And they get the win, and they stay alive to fight for another day. It's funny because going into the game, we were talking about this on the pregame show with Brian Smith and Chris Tarian. Columbus has to win both of their games in regulation because of the tiebreakers, the ROW, regulation and overtime wins. A win in overtime eliminates them from the playoffs. There would have been a scenario where Columbus in the third period in a tie game would have had to pull their goalie to try and get the go-ahead goal. And had they given up an empty net goal in a tie game, like we saw last year in Game 82 when the Flyers pulled their goaltender in Game 82, and Washington ended up winning that game on a game-winning goal into an empty net. And you think about that, and then the Flyers, scored an empty net goal, and how that affects the lottery standings or where you finish in a season. It's that minuscule and minute a detail. And Brian Smith brought up a couple of years ago in the Bedard draft that the Flyers played Chicago in the final game of that season, and Jonathan Toews had a breakaway that he missed. Flyers ended up, Chicago ended up winning that game in overtime. And had that not happened, had Toews scored that goal and the Flyers not gotten a point, or Flyers ended up winning the game. So, and Chicago not gotten the 2 points, then all of a sudden, maybe they don't land Bedard. That's the randomness of the NHL draft lottery and how things play out. That's why you can't get so hung up. Flyers down the stretch, they're ruining their draft position. They maybe end up 5th and worst in the NHL and end up with the number 1 pick. You don't know. Now, you have better odds if you finish lower, of course. I get it. But sometimes you have to let fate be fate and let it play out and see how it plays out. I get the math and I get all those elements of it. I do. I honestly do. And, that game last night, I'm going, this is one of those ones that's really putting me to the test. Flyers are not playing for anything. They have a chance to, if Columbus wins, Columbus has a chance to still make the playoffs and Montreal not make the playoffs. Now, I've lost kind of like my fan hate for teams all over the league and that kind of thing a long time ago because I've been doing this for so long. But if it was down to one game and if Columbus were to beat the Flyers and that would eliminate Montreal, then that would be a tough thing for me to root for a win for the Flyers. Just because I find their fan base very arrogant and loathsome with their arrogance. Look, they have a reason to be arrogant. They've won the most cups ever. But it's one of those, loathing a fan base is one of those things that's great about sports. It's not hate, real hate. It's sports hate, and it's fun, and it's good. One Canadian fan, I guess, was listening to the pregame show on Sirius XM, called me out for saying that on the pregame show. And I'm like, dude, calm down. This is just Sports 8. This is all fun. We're not going crazy here. But Columbus stays alive, and we'll see how it plays out and if they get into the playoffs and where they go when they get in. They're going to get a tough matchup as wild card number 2 if they do get in. But we'll see how that plays out for them. Best of luck to them, because if there's a team I'm rooting for to get in, it's them based on what they had to go through. They're sitting right there knocking on the door right now. And Montreal play tomorrow night, and we'll see if they back their way into the playoffs or if they end up spitting the bit and not making it. We'll see how that all comes to fruition in the next couple of days as the playoff field gets set. But all said and done, it'll be against, if Columbus does make it, they'll have to take on the Washington Capitals in round number 1. That is not going to be a party, although the Caps all of a sudden, since Ovi broke the record, struggling a little bit. So one more game for the Flyers. It's coming up in a couple tomorrow. Not tomorrow, the next day. We'll preview it when we get there, as we do all 82 here on Flyers Daily. But they'll be in Buffalo to wrap up the season, coming up on Thursday night in Buffalo to take on the Sabres, another team that they're battling with at the bottom of the standings for lottery odds. So Flyers go down in game number 81, and the home schedule has been wrapped up. We're going to get to a few more responses from the tweet that we talked about in yesterday's episode in a moment, but I do want to get to some of the Twitter comments from yesterday's episode. So I think some good ones came in, and this community that we're building, not Twitter, excuse me, YouTube in the comment section is growing, and I love it. Same old 50-50 said, hope you were able to see the game tonight, Jason. Wishing you well. Yeah, I was able to get there, and very happy to get there. David said, keep fighting the good fight. The 24-25 Flyer season has opened some old wounds, mainly goaltending. It's kind of ironic how this season is ending, as the Flyers goaltenders have been better, but not great. But the opposing goaltenders have been dreadful until tonight, or till last night. He said it's almost as if the opposition is trying to out-tank the Flyers. I couldn't agree more about Shaw, as caution is also needed where the Flyers players are concerned as well. It might just be a mirage given the opposition and current playoff situation. Look, I think when pro hockey teams all of a sudden have no pressure and they're out of it, you can play a lot freer. Plus the coaching change, I think, spiked things. And the Flyers have gotten some wins. Didn't last night, but have gotten some wins here down the stretch, which is why I brought up a lot of the teams when they get eliminated tend to go on a little bit of a good run over 5 to 7 games. Dwayne Tough says, all the best from Calgary, my brother. Elbows up, Jason. Take care of yourself. Go Flyers, go. Elbows up for sure. We're going in. We may get 2 for elbowing. John said, thought this season several players underperformed and they need a goalie who can stop the stoppable shots. Key thing he just said, stoppable shots. It's the one bad goal a game. You just can't have it. It's going to happen sometimes. And you're going to make up for it because you're going to make a couple of 3-4 saves that you shouldn't make. But a bad goal at a bad time is one of those things that can really undo a team in a game. They have to find a way to mitigate that going forward. Now, as far as Sam Ersson goes, and I thought Ersson was good last night. I think he made some really good, first period spectacular. Made some really good saves. I am not throwing the baby out with the bathwater here when it comes to Ersson. I'm not ready to give up on Sam Ersson as being a number 1 goaltender. I think things really got pushed forward for Sam, obviously when Carter left, and that changed a lot. And I don't mean it changed a lot physically. I don't buy into the fact that last season his overusage was the reason why he wore down at the end. I think it was a little bit of usage. I didn't think it was an energy thing. I thought it was a mental thing. When you all of a sudden go from being the clear backup in the franchise and taking advantage of your opportunities when you get in there, when he and Carter were both splitting the duties, Carter was getting the bulk. And Sam, in his role, was performing very well. To all of a sudden be thrust into being, you're the man, you're the number 1 guy at that position is a mental drain. And it's easy to want to be the man and be the number 1 goalie, but it's damn hard to do it because when you falter, there's nowhere to hide. And I think that wore on Sam Ersson. He is 25 years of age, Ersson. So basically he's played so far in the NHL 109 games, very young by goalie standards. He'll be 26 coming up at the beginning of next season in October 20th. For example, to compare that, Igor Shesterkin, basically his rookie year, was 25. Goalies don't reach their kind of what they're going to be at 22, 23, 24 sometimes. Some do. It's rare. I think in the right situation, in a tandem situation, and in particular with a veteran partner that can help Sam through some of the ups and downs and those things, I think that he can still become a legit number one in the NHL. Now, that's going to be incumbent upon him, his work ethic, which I don't question, his mental strength and the way he goes about things mentally. I think he's very in tune with that, and how he moves forward. So I don't think the kind of what Sam Ersson has been fully discovered yet or determined. Maybe it has, but I still believe that he can become a number one goaltender in the NHL, but it's going to take the next year or two, and how that development and that continued development plays out for him, and also the environment around him, because it affects a goaltender. 109 games is not a huge sample size, playing behind a team that was constantly subtracting and rebuilding. So the obituary is not written by me when it comes to Sam Ersson. So wanted to say that. Joseph DeAngelis said, true contending teams, this is a great message that he wrote. True contending teams are strong down the middle, solid in goal, and have a top defensive pairing. The 2024-25 Flyers season was disappointing to me, mainly because I don't see what the plan is to fill these important areas. The Flyers are obviously not tanking, but at the same time, they can't possibly use all their draft picks. They can, but I don't think they will. There are no players in the system that can fill these top roles, and the Phantoms are disappointing, which does not bode well for the players that might be called up. Now they have no head coach and MOS. I don't know what that means, but anyway, he's right. I think the way to build an NHL team in today's game, and through a lot of eras of the NHL, big and strong up the middle. I believe you want size up the middle. You can't have all small centers. You can have a small center, but I think you want to be big up the middle. I think at teams, I look at guys like Kopitar up the middle. When the Blues won, Ryan O'Reilly up the middle. I think at guys like Nathan McKinnon and big, strong drivers up the middle. I believe that that's an important element of a team that can grind, be a perennial playoff team and a team that can grind through multiple rounds in the playoffs. Yes, you have to be solid in goal. There's no question about it. It's way too of a volatile position that you have to be strong in goal. Now, how you get that is ranging, because we've seen guys from Aiden Hill and Braden Holtby, who wasn't the goalie in Washington, and got the crease back, and then rode him to the Cup final. We saw Jordan Binnington come out of nowhere. We've seen guys all over the league that you didn't think were going to be the man for the playoffs become the man in the playoffs. And you need a strong top defensive pairing. You need your, without question, number one top D pairing. I do agree with that. And yeah, you're right. Those, you don't have this drafted player or guy that's a bona fide, 28-minute Victor Hedman. Bonk's not going to be that. You don't have that center in your system, but there's other ways to get it besides the draft. You can get it, tap into RFA. You can go for it if that becomes available in the free agent market. And you can also do it via the trade. All things which you don't have complete control of. You can't just wish it and have it happen, but there are ways to do it. So as far as the Flyers are obviously not tanking, no, I wouldn't call it a tank, because they're playing to win, but they're also not tanking. When you have all the subtraction that they've had over the last 2 years, they weren't making roster decisions on the trades they made to benefit them now. So whether we call that tanking, I don't know what you call that. To me, that's a rebuild. Rebuild is palatable. Tanking is not to me, but we'll see. And they have a lot of draft currency. You can use that in trades. That's got extreme value around the NHL. So we'll see where it goes. And as far as the Phantoms go, they're going to be in the playoffs once again. And they've got reinforcements have arrived, whether that's Lachenko's game, Carson Bjarnason just signed an ELC. Bump just signed an ATO, and we'll have an ELC that kicks in next year. Carson Dorwart will be available. They'll have also other players kind of coming to bolster that. So we'll see where that goes, and hopefully they can, go beyond a round and guys get playoff experience. We'll see if that's how it ends up playing out. Matt commented and said, roundtable for the fans and celebration for Jay this summer. I'm in. Also, shout out to Brian for helping out with the content. Yes, Smitty's done great and been awesome to help me when I can't go. Yeah, I think we have to do some kind of roundtable coming up this summer. One guy did say to me, he said, take the summer off. Cryptic Cowboy said, don't worry about doing summer podcasts for the fans. You need to think about yourself and relax this summer. Get fully charged. Keep your stick on the ice. No, I'm going to do podcasts this summer. I am not surrendering and letting cancer win. I love this job. I hate the offseason. You guys know that. But there's a lot to be talked about this offseason, from a coaching change, a coaching hire, to the additions that'll be made, to the draft. I'm not taking the summer off. Screw that. I want to work. Flyboy said, I started listening to Flyers Daily for the excellent hockey takes. Well, that's your opinion. I still listen for the excellent hockey takes, but now I stay for Jason to see if he's doing okay. Loves you still battling, brother. Flyers are cheering alongside you, as are we. I appreciate that. And I will say that, seeing a lot of the players last night at the game, they've been incredible. Like the players have too. The whole staff, and got a chance to talk with Danny Briere, Keith Jones before the game, and see those guys, and got a chance to talk to a few of the players as they were warming up playing soccer. And I have to thank them, and I'm going to do it publicly. The players pulled a bunch of money together and donated to my GoFundMe, a very substantial amount of money. And it's humbling to have those guys do that for me. So I appreciate it more than they can imagine. And I had a chance to pull a few veteran guys aside, Couturier and Travis Sanheim, and thank them, because it means a ton to me. Let's get to a couple more here. Peter said, hey, Jason, I enjoyed your show. Watched 27 this season. That would be no Cates. Become a good player. Agreed. I thought he was absolutely in the running for the most improved player. Bobby Brink ended up winning it. But I think you could have picked any player on that line, Brink, Forster, or Cates. That was a tight race. We're not as far away as people seem to think. He said, I moved to Vancouver Island in 1975 from Scotland and have been a diehard Flyer fan since. That's interesting that you moved from Scotland to Vancouver and you ended up Flyers fan. He said, I love my team. I love my Flyers. No quit, blocking shots. Torch was a good coach. Players are honest. I really hope all the best. You're a Flyer. Tough as nails. Stay positive and keep kicking ass. Pete from Victoria, BC. Thank you, Pete. Appreciate that a lot. Kenneth said, looking at the draft, Caleb Denoye plays center, and he will be there when the Flyers pick. Caleb is his younger brother of Elliott, who is in the Flyers system. And the Flyers have been known to have brothers like the Sutters and the Shens. Yeah, the Flyers have had brothers on the team before. So that's a good point. Wayne says, I think Jet could be a number one center eventually. We'll see. That'll be to be determined by Jet Lachenko and, the development of Jet Lachenko. So we'll see if he is able to achieve that. Let's get to some of the Twitter comments. Vineet Singh said, the curious case for Cates, similar to the argument used against Frost. Does it make sense to sign Cates to a long-term extension, given Lachenko and a rejuvenated Coots are 2 and 3 centers for the future, yet Cates can move to the wing with Bump, Barkey, and Grabenkin? Do we need to? I got all the time in the world for a player like Noah Cates, because his worst game is very similar to his best game. There's very little range in what he gives you game in and game out. And he may get through times where he doesn't score, but you are always going to get a hardworking, honest effort from him and a detailed player. I think he's a winner. I think those kind of players win. And I think those kind of players pay dividends in playoffs. Guys that do the little things, the not so glorious things at times. Chris tweeted in and said, all the fans so worried about draft position, Briere is going to trade the pick plus 1 or 2 roster players and acquire a 1C or 2C high end. Who you think is a Flyer would be? Look, I don't know. I don't know who's going to be available. I don't think that Danny is going to, if Danny ends up in the top 5, the Flyers pick there, I don't think he's going to trade the pick. I don't. Could he trade one of the other picks? Maybe. They shifted the Edmonton pick from last year to this year. And Edmonton been a banged up team of late. Draisaitl's been banged up. McDavid's been banged up. They may have lost now Matthias Ekholm. That could have gone from all of a sudden the 31st pick in the NHL because they got to the final last year. That could end up being like a 24th overall pick. That's a big difference. So that may have been one of those things. I'm sure Danny didn't have some crystal ball and know that Matthias Ekholm and maybe Edmonton would be out earlier. But that could be kind of what the situation stands to end up happening. Sports dude. Hey, Jason, keep fighting. Stay strong. I will absolutely do that. He said, what do the centers look like next year, assuming we get a stopgap 1C, 14, 27, 25 plus Chenko? I think one of those players you can move to a wing. Cates is a guy you can move to the wing, but I love his responsibility. Does Paling make sense on the wing? Maybe. I don't see him as a fourth-line winger, though. I'd see him as a fourth-line center and penalty killer. Couturier, does he make sense on the wing? I don't think so right now. By the way, the game last night, I thought Couturier looked great in the game. I thought he played really well. I thought his anticipation of plays was spot on. Great stick. I thought he played really. He looks rejuvenated. What is he going to be going for? I don't know. But I thought, not for nothing, I thought he looked really damn good last night. AQ said 24-25 Flyers season. Can Myrtetus play goalie next year? No. Which leads to the question, what do the Flyers do with their goaltending situation? We've discussed it. Do you go into free agency, find a 2-year deal for a Jake Allen type? Do you trade for a guy? We'll see what it is. I think Sam Ersson's absolutely a part of what they come back with next year. What the other part of that is a huge question mark. Huge question mark. Let's get to this one from Efran the Man. Says, question, we've gotten enough evidence to this point that the Flyers are properly handling. Have we gotten enough evidence the Flyers are properly handling player development moving forward? He said the 24-25 season was a roller coaster of emotion. I walk away encouraged about the future while also testing my patience to get there. Totally justified. It's easy to keep asking for patience. It's hard to keep maintaining patience when the results aren't improving. As far as player development, we're now, the second season into Riley Armstrong's tenure as the director of player development for the Flyers. I think it is too early. I think we've seen some players really make steps, both at the NHL level, some at the AHL level, but we still have to see more. You can't, it's like judging a pick in 2 years. It takes longer than that. You're drafting an 18-year-old kid. You have to get them to be a man, and development is not the same arc for every player. Some players blossom later at a different rate of development. Some blossom earlier, but plateau. So I think it's too early to determine that. So, developing players is a big part of it. Drafting the right player, developing them, giving them every element that they need to reach the NHL with success and be a contributor is a big part of it. You look at teams like Tampa. They have some top high-end picks there, but they also have some guys that were huge elements. Kucherov, Braden Point, guys over Cirelli, all through the years, their cup years and continuing, that weren't high picks that they drafted in later rounds and developed. Kelly McCall says, despite the struggles and based on the talent they have on the roster in the system, where do you think the goaltending stands? I think it's a huge question mark. It's still going to go into the offseason as being one of the big question marks, only behind who's the next coach going to be. Who do you think they could target? And we've talked about it. I just don't know who's available yet. We don't know all the guys that will be available, so it's too hard to handicap who makes the most sense at this point. Elite Mike said, finish this sentence, needs to be the last transition year. Mishkov is here now, maybe to be fair, unexpectedly early, and the timeline has to adjust. On-ice performance needs to take a dramatic step forward. Totally agree. Notorious PIG said that the 24-25 Flyers season was hampered by goaltending, but that may be a good thing long-term. Agreed. It's what I said. This year, no matter what, it may be a forgotten year in a couple of years if the Flyers become a contender or whatever they become. But it will not be a year that did not have a lot of consequence. This year will have a lot of consequence on the future because of what they traded away, Frost, Farabee, Lawton, what they got in return, and what they do with the returns that they got, both in cap space and in draft equity. Adam said a lot of the roster turnovers happened already, but how many more players on the roster today do you believe will not be here on opening night in October? How many new players, free agents, trades, prospects do you think will be on the 2025 opening night roster? It's a great question, and one that I'm not fully ready to answer yet because I have a lot of questions. Is Gulbenkian on the roster? Okay. Who comes off the roster for Gulbenkian? Is Bump on the roster? Who comes off the roster for Bump? Is a free agent center who comes off the roster? It's a great question. I think it probably, Adam, deserves its own episode. There will be change, though. I think no less than 4, upwards of maybe 6, 7 changes. Some people go, they need more than that. They're too far away. Well, go back to 2019-20. Flyers basically made 3 additions and had the subtraction of Nolan Patrick because he couldn't play that season. They added Kevin Hayes, they added Matt Niskanen, and they added Tyler Pitlick. And they were legitimately a good team. And nobody would have thought that adding that and subtracting Nolan Patrick would have put the Flyers where it puts them that season, ultimately to be derailed by the pandemic. I want to get to one more thing here because I got this question from a frequent contributor, Flyers Ginger Ambassador. He sent me this a while ago and he followed up on it. He said, interesting topic that he heard on the Snipes and Stripes podcast, 40 minutes. And he said, if you want to listen, they're talking about having veteran players in the organization and whether or not some teams have enough of that in the organization. He said, it's something I've wondered about with the Flyers. Guys I know that the Flyers have here are obviously Keith Jones, Danny Briere, John LeClair, Patrick Sharp. He said, but I don't know I'd consider Sharp a Blackhawk over a Flyer. I don't think that matters. I think Patrick Sharp is a 3-time Stanley Cup winner. I think having that in your organization is good. So I don't think it matters that he is definitely more of a Blackhawk than he was a Flyer. He works here. So I consider him part of that. He said Terrian on the radio and podcast, but I don't know that counts. Do the Flyers need more veteran leadership off the ice in the organization? I don't know that they do. I don't know where else you would add it. The players have, obviously interaction with Keith Jones and Danny Briere on a daily basis. Development has developing players with LeClair and Patrick Sharp. I don't think it's one of those things where there's a tipping point. If you don't have enough or any, you need it. So I think those things are important to help players. Like the amount of times that John LeClair will travel around, go watch games, and take out to dinner a prospect, or Patrick Sharp take out a prospect to dinner, and that player can, pick a guy like Sharpie's brain who won 3 Stanley Cups in 6 years, or John LeClair, who was one of the great power forwards of his generation, or being able to lean on Danny Briere as one of the great playoff performers, or Keith Jones that knows everybody in the league and was one of the great analysts. You have that. That is here. I think that's already present. So, and I think that is not an area of concern, at least not for me. All right, that's going to put a wrap on this episode. We certainly went a lot longer than I anticipated I could go. So join us tomorrow. We'll preview the Flyers' final game, Game 82 of the 24-25 season, when they head to Buffalo to take on the Sabres. And we'll do that tomorrow on a brand new Flyers Daily.